Hey, it's Clay. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to another video. This is going to be a little bit of a test with my XFX2, experimenting with some different output modes and just to kind of see or get an experience for how the different ways you can do it feel. In my experience with modeling units, the output, the way that you amplify and listen to the sound is extremely important. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can do it, and there's kind of a lot of confusion surrounding all this. So I wanted to talk about it. So I have set up my Bugera V22, and I'm running the XFX into the power amp, or the effects loop return, which I believe would be to run it into the power amp and then into the speaker, and then I'm miking that speaker. Everything on the amp on the front panel is set to 0, and none of the controls make any impact on the tone, so it's not running through the circuit of the amp at all. It really is just running into the output section, which is two EL84s, and then into the speaker cabinet. Now, on the XFX2, I'm going to experiment with a few different settings. I think optimally, in this type of a situation, you would want to run without an impulse response or a cabinet. You just want to run the amp itself and any effects, and then because then you've got the cabinet going on in the amp that you are running into, the real tube amp. But I'm going to try it both with it on and with it off, just because I think it's kind of has a different, interesting sound. And then lastly, I think I'm going to just do a recording straight to the interface with the impulse response to give you a feel for kind of what sounds best, because if you're running into a good and proper FR unit, it should sound like that. So, you know, I can't really give you the experience of what it's like to listen to the CLR in the room from the Atomic CLR, but I can give you, the CLR is pretty flat and accurate and close to what you would experience just with the direct recording. So, again, this is my Stratocaster into the XFX. I believe I've got my Fender Vibroburb going here. The cabinet is disabled. That's pretty much it. There really isn't a lot going on. I'm not going to do a whole ton of funky stuff with the sound here. I'm mostly just trying to get a feel for what it sounds like with the FR, or with the power amp here of this amp. So let's go ahead and test that now. Okay, for this second test, all I'm going to do is turn the cabinet simulation on. I'm currently running the Vibroburb into a 4x12 Pre-Rolla 55 M160. This is one of the newest cabinets added in the firmware, and I really like it. So let's go ahead and hear how that sounds. So actually, if you think about the signal flow, we actually are taking a guitar, running it into a Fender Vibroburb, into a 4x12 Marshall cabinet, miking that signal, and then running that signal into the power amp with the EL84s into another speaker, into the microphone that you guys are listening to. So, in theory, it shouldn't be ideal. But we'll go ahead and listen just to hear how it sounds in practice. Okay, so this is going to be the last test. I'm running the XFX into my interface, and the cabinet simulation is on. So this is kind of what it would sound like, direct recorded, or if you're using a proper FR, it would be trying to closely approximate this sound. Alright guys, so there you have the test. I'm curious to listen back to it myself, but subjectively in the room, what I hear is that anytime the Big Air was active, it just kind of put you in this weird position where without the impulse response, it sounded a little bit ratty to my ear, but then, you know, which is almost like a situation where you're not getting... I think it has to be because of the EL84s are imparting their own coloration, and it just isn't playing very nicely with the preamp from the XFX. But then when you turn the impulse responses on, it kind of seems like there's a blanket on the sound. So it just kind of felt like you're in this no man's land where you can't really find that sweet spot in the middle. Now, I think to my conclusion, I don't think running a modeler into a tube amp is the best solution. Especially, I wish I still had my Matrix power amp, but I don't. You know, it's something like that that is a dedicated neutral power amp into a guitar cabinet is a great way to go, and I think that to my ear, you don't get that kind of ratty in-between sound. You sit right at the sweet spot where you're getting exactly what you want. You're letting the XFX do its job entirely, and then you're just using your cabinet, your guitar cabinet, to replace the impulse response, because the power amp isn't doing anything to color the sound. But with the tube amp, you get that overlap where you have the amp. It's basically kind of like you're slaving your amp almost, where you're running a full amp, preamp and power amp into the power amp of another amp, and it just kind of gets this weird overlap. So my conclusion, at least for my results, is if you want to run a modeler, either go with FR. You know, I've got my Atomic CLR. When I need that sound, it sounds great. But I also think there are times when you want that amp in the room feel, and so go with a power amp plus guitar cabinet setup. And, you know, the Matrix power amp that I used to have was amazing. It was very neutral. It was perfect for that application. And then get whatever guitar cabinet you really like. You're going to be really happy with that as well. It's going to be just like using an amp, except you've got all the versatility of the XFX in terms of the effects and the amp models and all that jazz, and then your output section is neutral for what's coming in. You don't get any weird overlap or crossover where you've got multiple power sections or multiple speaker cabinets. You're getting exactly what you want. So, I hope this was helpful. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.